Yeah, Bethany, I'm here at the Fallen Officers Memorial Wall, where this morning and into the early afternoon, Jacksonville residents came to leave a flower, say a prayer, but most to just take a minute to reflect. Under the falling rain, a statue of a kneeling officer leaves a bronze rose on the ground, honoring Jacksonville's fallen officers. When the rain breaks, the people they swore to protect leave real roses, out of respect for Officer Lance Whitaker, who died in Tuesday morning's crash.
It's very wonderful for people to come out and remember the people that have put their life on the line.
Jonah Osteen and Allison Carter don't know much about what happened, but that didn't stop them from paying their respects. The way they see it, it's not about officers or civilians. It's about lifting our neighbors up when they need it the most.
I think that really is nice. Everyone just try to come, help out the community.
A brief moment of sunshine soon passes and more rain comes through, but so do more people and more roses.
Even though they might not have known them, but they still took the time to come out and remember or take a moment of silence for them. It's wonderful.
Right now, this memorial features the names of 61 fallen officers. Unfortunately, sometime very soon, it'll be 62. Eric Alvarez, First Coast News, on your side.